Katy Winge's in the house. She's going to give us her view of what it was like covering your NBA champion Denver Nuggets throughout this ride. We'll get into all of the things that happened this season along that ride, as well as her success with now an Emmy winner, Katy Winge, here on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Monday and making us being an everydayer and making us part of your week. Appreciate you guys being along for the ride as we get through the offseason. I'm very excited today to have Katy Winge from Altitude Sports, Emmy Award winner Katy Winge now, as she has won a Heartland Emmy as a part of the Altitude Sports team for their coverage of the Denver Nuggets championship. On today's show, we're going to talk a little bit about what her perspective was, what her memories were of this championship run. We'll talk about the players that impressed her in terms of being more prepared, maybe for that to be a 16 gamer than she thought. We'll talk about what it's like being on the broadcast team and having that different type of relationship with the locker room and with the players and covering that as well. You know, Katy Winge from Altitude, where she is both at times a sideline reporter. She is color commentator. She is on Altitude Radio. She's on everything Altitude. She is Miss Altitude. Katy Winge, how you doing?
That was the best intro. Thank you, Matt. I'm doing so well. It's so great to hear. Well, one, that's the first time that I've actually been introduced as an Emmy Award winner. So thank you for that shout out. But it also is so good to hear every single time reporter, host, analyst of the NBA champions. So fun to just keep reliving that and ride that train as long as we can.
Yeah, it's an important part of it. Not just a reporter and analyst, but reporter analyst of the champions.
Yes, of the NBA champions. Yes, exactly.
So we got to start with the hard-hitting question. How was Taylor Swift?
Matt, I'm in a little bit of a depression. It's like very similar emotionally to like the Nuggets winning the championship, the Nuggets parade, and then like a day later, 2 days later, you're like, what do I do now? Like that was such the peak of the mountain. And this weekend going to see Taylor Swift, it was very similar. It was just such an emotional high and so exciting and so fun. And then all of a sudden it's done. And it was something you looked forward to for so long. It was something that you had circled on your calendar. And then you're like, wait, it's kind of like post-vacation blues. Similar feelings of like, well, we've done all this prep and planning and all this excitement has built. And then you get to experience it and live it. And then it's just done. And that part's sad, but Taylor was incredible. She put on the best show I've ever seen. The fact that she performed for 3 hours straight at altitude, mind you, didn't miss a beat, didn't miss a step, so fun. And I love Taylor because I grew up with Taylor, right? Like she's 32, I'm 30. So a lot of the things that she has sung about, a lot of the albums that she's made have really coincided with like my stages of life. And so to relive kind of the eras in that way and feel the nostalgia amongst 73,000 fans the energy was just unbelievable.
Well, you know, if you're bummed, you can just keep going to concerts. You can just you can just follow her around. If you have an NBA player's salary, you would be able to afford to just follow the Eras tour. All right, so let's get into some Nugget stuff here. So I have some questions I sent over to you before. This one is a really interesting one to me, and I'm actually looking forward to Media Day because after the title, it was obviously chaos, and it was hard to get. There was no chance to really talk to anybody, and there's so much media there. So I'm looking forward to Media Day to actually kind of ask some of the players these questions. But I want to know from you this one. What was the moment that you can remember that you knew that this team could win a title? Can you remember a moment where you were like, they're good enough, they could really do this?
You know, it's interesting because I think there are a couple different stages to that question. Mm-hmm. The way that the Nuggets talked about their belief in winning a championship, that truly started at training camp, and watching them bond and the chemistry that they started to build. Like that was different than any Nuggets team that I've been around, any Nuggets team that I've covered. You could just feel that there was a very unique chemistry and energy that was forming. And they walked the walk as well as talked the talk. And so that made you believe that they were taking it more seriously. That made you believe that they were more bought in. That made you believe that they truly believed that this was possible. Different stages of the season. I mean, Jamal Murray against Portland hitting that game winner and recognizing that he was very close to being back. I hate using that phrasing, but closer to feeling like himself, feeling more in the flow of a game. For me, the question was never like, do they have all the pieces? I knew they had the pieces. The question was, can they stay healthy? And are those pieces going to perform to their potential, to what we hope they can live up to and on a consistent basis? So I think the moment that I really thought they were going to do it, what didn't come until the playoffs. That was like Phoenix for me, that Phoenix series, and recognizing that I don't know how someone stops them. I don't know how somebody stops Nikola Jokic. You have guys that are, connecting and firing on all cylinders. If you take away one thing, they have an answer for that. Their adjustments were really good. I thought Coach Malone did a good job of changing up his game plan and adjusting to the other team's adjustments. And so I actually had a conversation. I have like a video chat with a couple of my best girlfriends. I was driving home from a game, and I think it was after the Minnesota series. And I just was like, you guys, they might actually do it. That was one of those moments to me where I was like, they can do it. They're capable. Like, this actually might happen. Yeah. And I sincerely believed that. I really did at that point. And then the Phoenix series happens, and then the Lakers happen, and then you're just like, they're gonna do it. They're gonna find a way to do it. So I think it all started at training camp, truthfully, and because of how genuine and authentic their belief was, it made me buy into it, and then seeing it develop throughout the season was just, the growth was incredible, and it just made me more and more of a believer as the season went on.
Yeah, I asked Jamal back in January, I was like, how does this team compare to the other teams that you've played on? Trying to get him to be like, this is the best squad that I've ever been on. They were very careful the entire season to never, like, in my recollection, they didn't use the word championship or title much, if at all, until we got to round 2. Like, they were basically like, long way to go, making progress. We like where we're at. Like, I tried the veterans. I was like, all right, but the veterans will help me. And then KCP was like, we have the potential, but we got to keep working at it. And it's just like, they were very careful to never put the cart before the horse and to never talk about it. And that's always been a big thing that I found. The teams that talk about it almost never do it. Like, it's very rare that because you're not focused on the right thing. You got to be in the moment. I think that's like a lot of why Malone stresses it over and over and over again, is like, we got to be in this moment. We got to be right here. We got to be like focused on what we're doing. And it felt like they were very selective in not wanting, even if they knew it collectively, they were not going to let anybody else know that they felt what they were capable of.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that is I feel like the most I heard of them talk about it was media day last year. Like, was throughout training camp. Like, I have an opportunity to have a separate room where I sit down all the guys and I ask them very strategic questions to put together features and different stories throughout our season. It's like one of our biggest content days of the year. And my final question to them in a lot of those rooms was, if healthy, what is this team capable of? And every single one of them said championship. Like, they didn't hold back there. But it was like, after it was addressed, and then we got into the mundane day-to-day rhythm of a regular season in the NBA, it wasn't spoken. It was almost like, we're not going to think that far ahead because we don't want to jinx it. We want to just keep taking it day by day. And then, like you said, Matt, like, getting to the playoffs was when they finally were like, no, this is what we've been working for. We've known we've been capable of this. Yeah. And the one other thing that comes to mind, one other conversation that comes to mind, it was, I think, right around All-Star. And I asked Aaron Gordon in a scrum, because you had asked, Jamal, what's this team capable of, or what is this team like? Are you going to win a championship? And I asked Aaron Gordon, like, how would you describe the chemistry right now? And so it was kind of a softball. You can take it wherever you want to go. And he said, this is my favorite team I've ever been on in my whole life.
Wow.
And that was halfway, 3/4 of the way through the season.
Yeah.
And even though that's not saying this is the best team I've ever been on, that's saying these guys are my brothers. These guys are guys I would go to war with. I think the unspoken story behind a sentiment like that says so much about the unspoken belief that this team had in doing something really special.
One more before we take a little bit of a break. I want to ask you, what are some of the enduring images from the championship run, from that playoff run and from the championship that you remember? Like, what are the things you're going to remember most clearly in your mind as like images from this run, you think?
So, like working backwards, I guess.
Yeah.
With the moment that the buzzer sounded at Ball Arena and feeling what that felt like.
Where were you?
So I sit Nuggets bench up a little bit, but I was like basically right at the corner of the Nuggets bench.
Okay.
And kind of walked onto the floor. And I was recording on my phone, and I just remember feeling so overwhelmed with emotion. Like there's a video of me and I like basically start crying. And to watch their dreams become a reality and to watch their emotion and to feel the Nuggets fans like breathe that sigh of relief collectively of like, oh my gosh, we did it. Mm-hmm. They did it. And then watching the individuals, right? Like Bruce Brown being on the ground, Jamal Murray starting to cry, JB, one of the assistant coaches, just walking around hugging people, tears streaming down his face. Watching DeAndre find Jeff, who found Ish, and the three of them hugging, just bear hugging each other, being like, we did this. We made this happen. Like little moments like the Jokic brothers and Natalia and Agnieszka, Jokic's daughter, being on the floor and him embracing her and her being on stage. Like little moments like that where you have like pictures in your head of individuals. Those will all stick out. Being in LA when they swept and being on the floor for that and getting the shirts and looking out and seeing the Laker fans filing out and the Nuggets fans coming down into that stadium was just, or that arena was like truthfully unbelievable, because it was like, did they really just sweep the Lakers? It felt so surreal, so surreal. And then the embracing and the hugging there too. And then I think too, just kind of a funny one, like I will never forget like Matt Ishbia and Jokic in that corner in Phoenix.
Forgotten about that.
I know. I'm like, well, that was like a whole thing. Like Ishbia was trying to get Jokic, who knows what was going on there. But like that interaction becoming such a narrative of that series was like, you can't stop Jokic, so what are you going to try and do to get him out of a game or whatever the scenario was. So that's something that I'll always kind of remember too, of like, that was so strange the way that happened in Phoenix.
It was weird.
So weird.
For me, it's there are a couple that stick out. It's usually Jamal. Jamal is like the player I think I have the most images of. Jamal exhorting to the crowd, we're ready for this.
Oh,
like that to me was like such a declaration to the entire league of like, oh, and like him having that moment after what he had been through with the injury was such like that was an apex moment for me. That
one's so good. And him calling his own bang too with Mike Brant.
Oh yeah. Oh, what a
so good.
I think I'll remember Aaron was just like, in the locker room when I went in there during the run, Aaron was always just like you could just tell that he was satisfied. He was exhausted. Like Aaron was so beat to hell throughout this entire run because of who he had to guard and the size disadvantages, the physicality. He was just facing tough matchups every single night. But like that guy was so satisfied with those wins. Like you could just, I had noticed throughout the year that Aaron took the losses in the regular season harder than most, and he took the wins better than most too. And so like that was definitely one to remember from For me, the other one is Malone in the hallway after he did his media availability. I came out to shake his hand and tell him congratulations. And like, he's just going through like person to person. And it's like all these people from his life. Like, it's just so many different people that he's known and met that happen to be in there that he's known, and like shaking, and just like he was, and honestly, seeing him that happy is such a rarity and how he approaches things. So it was, those are the ones that I think I remember the most. On the other side, I want to ask Katy a little bit about what players proved the most to her during the championship run. I also want to get a little bit into what it's like with her role at altitude and the relationship that she has with the players. We'll talk about that on the other side. First, I need to tell you about PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy. You just pick 2 to 6 players, and if they go over or under their projections, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. Not competing against other people, you're just going against the projections, so you're not having to deal with a bunch of people with a whole bunch of screens doing 1,500 entries. It's just you versus the projections, and they've got any sport that you want to cover, including FIBA World Cup will be available at PrizePicks this summer. They've got MMA, boxing, disc golf. They do Euro basketball right now, women's college basketball, men's college basketball, college football for men, NFL, NBA, WNBA, all of the sports covered at PrizePicks. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy, and they offer safe and fast withdrawals. They're currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match when they use promo code LOCKEDON. That's promo code LOCKEDON for an instant deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. We'll be right back with Katy Winge here on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets with Katy Winge of Altitude's Emmy Award-winning Katy Winge of Altitude Sports here on Locked On Nuggets, reliving the Nuggets championship run. So one of the other questions I wanted to ask you, and then I want to get into kind of your role with Altitude, is who are the guys that impressed you most in terms of, turns out that they were like 16-game players? Because there were so many guys I thought in this run that show that they have what it takes to not. The playoffs are almost a different sport in some ways, and they really had to do a lot of different things. So I'm just curious as to who impressed you and showed you the most throughout the run.
Aaron Gordon, for sure. Just in terms of, I think it's one thing to say, like, I'll do whatever my team needs for me to do to win. And it's a whole other thing to actually do that to a point, to your point, Matt, of exhaustion. And
you've been around Malone too much, Katy. You just gave me to your point, Matt. You've been around Mo too much. That's not okay.
I can't help it. But the way that Aaron Gordon was able to perform really on both sides of the basketball when the Nuggets needed him to, what he did defensively was, I mean, nothing short of spectacular. And having to take on the challenge of guarding the other team's best player, second best player, most physical player, and then still produce at a pretty high level on the offensive side of things. I know he had some games that were better than others in terms of point totals and that sort of thing, but I just thought that he was so steady and gave the Nuggets exactly what they needed throughout, their 16 wins. This might seem kind of cliche, I guess, but I was so looking forward to seeing who Jamal Murray would be in the playoffs again.
Yeah.
And everything we hoped he would be and more. Like, I know he hates being compared to who he was in the bubble, and I don't blame him for that, and I hate doing it too, but I think a lot of people saw what he did in the bubble and thought that that was a one-time thing. And to see him do what he did and win a championship at the end of it was so satisfying. And also, I just was so happy for him. Like, he deserved it. He worked so hard. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that we don't see and we don't know about. And
no.
I mean, I'm around the team more than most. And so to kind of watch his rehab more closely than a lot of people got to, and even listening to him talk about the mental struggles of like, okay, my body's back, but what am I thinking when I'm out there? How am I adapting? And truly to consider where he was at the end of this season, this being his first season back is crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm not an NBA player, but I tore my ACL too. And coming back from that, I experienced very similar ups and downs mentally and physically to what Jamal went through. And the amount of mental toughness and fortitude that it takes to have the acceleration to get back to being even better than you were before. I mean, that's legendary. It's a legendary run from Jamal Murray and what he was capable of doing. And to see him perform even better than he's played in any playoff prior was so cool, so neat. I thought Bruce Brown was really great off the bench too. I know that's probably a touchy topic right now, but sad to see him go, but obviously so deserving. And he's a huge part of why the Nuggets were able to be NBA champions, and him coming off the bench and giving him something good every single night. I thought he was really consistent. I mean, the other guy too that proved that he's just a freaking winner is Christian Braun.
Yeah.
Like, to be a rookie and to come in, did he play perfect in all 16 games or 16 wins? No, but he's someone that you can rely on, and he's someone that knows how to do it and has done it at every level now. So I think he proved something too when he was out there and he was contributing, and whether it was 20 minutes or 4 minutes. I'm excited for what the future holds for CB, because what he's absolutely proven is that he knows how to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree with Bruce. That was the gamble that was kind of made on him with bringing him in, and Malone talked a lot about his defense versus Tatum. And during the regular season, we kind of went back and forth because he got off to a really great start, and then I thought he was okay when they really kind of made hay in that middle section. Like, Bruce kind of wasn't I don't think Bruce was at that highest level that he can be at. And he started to show it in March. Like, we were like, man, Bruce has had a really good month in March, and they just carried that all the way through. I definitely think AG is another good one, especially AG had so much trouble in that series versus the Warriors last year, and he had to fight really hard to get through that. And I thought he honestly acquitted himself very well by the end of it. But you can also tell, like, he learned lessons from that, and he took that forward. And like that, I find Aaron Gordon's career arc to be one of the most interesting on the team. Like, I just think that it's a really fascinating story. You're about to get a bunch of praise, so like, I need you to prepare yourself for the compliments here.
Okay.
There are so many incredible people that work in the media industry covering the NBA, and there are different people that do it in very different ways, and I think that that's good. Like, everybody's got to have their own path. Your combination of what you're able to bring to altitude, to me, sets you apart in a lot of ways. And I've told, this is not me saying this just to you, like, I tell other people this when your name comes up, and it's not, you are diligent in your research. Like, I've been around those pregame meetings in the media room / dining room, because we only have one.
Yeah, it's very small too. It's very small.
Yeah. So I get to hear everything.
Yeah. Matt's basically in our meetings, our production meetings.
Like, literally, she'll hit me up with questions about different things, like when they're in the middle of a meeting.
We're like, wait, come over here.
Find her getting potatoes.
Specifically the playoff grid. Like, Matt, how many wins do we need to clinch?
Yeah, like Katie's like, Matt, what's the magic number? And I'm like, I'm getting potatoes, but it's 4.
Please hold.
Please hold, but it's 4. But it's also that you, as a former player, like, I will just say, those players react to you differently. Like, there's a relationship there, and it allows you, I think, to get great answers from them when you ask. When you ask things, you have their attention and respect, and that gives the fans, I think, great content. You also have managed this with, you feel like you're part of the community. You feel like you're part of the fan community. There's this really strong connect. And to me, it's like an ideal of what should be somebody in your role, which is I always say this, that the media's job is to be a conduit between the fans and the teams and the players, right? And so, like, my job in a lot of that is I wind up trying to pick on the things that fans are angry about, where I'm like, why did your pick and roll defense suck? Not in those terms, but like those kind of questions. But your ability, I think, to take that passion and the energy and the excitement and the fun, and then also translate into serious and very well reasoned and researched analysis is particularly terrific. I want to ask you.
Thank you first before you ask me. That's so kind.
I wanted to ask you, what is it like trying to navigate your role as somebody that is that conduit for the fans with somebody who obviously works for the entity which is owned by the team, and you're an extension of the organization? What have you found to be both the advantages and challenges of that role?
It was a learning curve for sure. I had to, because when I came in, I started in arena, and that was much more entertainment based than I was very comfortable with. Right. I had, you have to project your voice and you're on a microphone and you can hear yourself echoing and you want to get people's attention. And
right.
So that was just a very different approach for me. Sure. But I think that ultimately really helped me transition to TV and it made me appreciate TV too. But being a part of the team, I always I'm careful with the way that I say that, I guess, but working for the entity of the team, at first, I wanted to break news. I wanted to be somebody that had all the information first and was giving that out and had sources. And I mean, I was fresh out of journalism school at Northwestern. And so it was an adjustment for me to kind of take a step back and recognize that that's not really my role in my job anymore.
Or possible to be.
Yeah. And
you can be honest. That's not possible. And nobody's going to that's a reasonable thing for an employer to expect, I think.
Yes. But I'm so competitive. And so I wanted it. I wanted to achieve it. I wanted to be the one who got the information. But what I learned very quickly, and this is just a personality trait of mine too, is relationships will always be the number one thing for me. The way that people respect me, the way that those relationships grow and form and are authentic and real and genuine. And now I think I'm at a place in my career where my relationships with this team, because it has been so consistent, they're so good. And there's a certain level of trust there. I would never do anything to burn a bridge or to break that trust, or I will hold on to secrets that I know because that matters so much more to me than breaking news. And again, that was something that I had to kind of switch up in my head when I first started this job, but now it's my favorite part of my job is feeling like I get to learn about this team and learn about these people. And I have this trust and this bond within the organization that I'm not going to be the one asking the hard questions. And I'm totally fine with that. I want to be the one that's asking the hard questions, as in digging for information. Right. If they lose, I'm going to ask a tough question, or a question that's a little bit more difficult to answer. But I think being the one to tell the stories that reveal more than just numbers and reveal more than just information on this team, but being able to actually show these players as people is something that I take so much pride in. And it's because I've formed such great relationships and I've been so close to the team and I've established that trust that I'm able to do that.
I just need to take a second and say that I need to have Katy on all the time, as much as I can possibly get her on, because the comment section has never been this positive. They have never been.
I haven't even looked at the comments.
I didn't tell you because I was I don't want to distract her. And you're always nervous about how it's going to go. But Katy is not respected by the fans. She is beloved by the fans. Hurricane says. And
you guys are so great.
Please, we don't want to I would take a bullet for Katy if it meant I got to hear her call a finals game. All these.
Oh my gosh, you guys are the best.
But I think you are really good with. I say this to young writers because whenever they're new in a locker room, I always say, I'm look, TV first, beat writers second, and then we kind of open up. You need to let those guys get in because if it's TV, it's literally why they're there and they're on live. And then two, the beat writers are on deadline, so you need to respect the guys that are there, whether it's Mike or Vinny. And then the rest of us can kind of fill in, or Harrison, and then when the rest of us can fill in those questions.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
But also,
I appreciate that about you.
But I think one of the things though is that I'm always like, when you're in there and we're in a scrum, I'm always like, we're going to get a good question out of Katy right off the bat, which is going to like, and sometimes you won't even necessarily hit like the obvious one, but you will ask a question that gets an insightful response, and it does kind of reset the conversation to where the player will be a little bit more open, which I think is really good. Because you talked about, you know, the digging stuff, and like that is part of the dynamic. It's one of the reasons why, like I try and be very transparent with the players about like what they can expect from me whenever that's queried. Like Christian was talking loosely in the locker room one night. And then like kind of Jamal kind of gave him a media's in here. And it wasn't like Jamal knows the deal and it's fine. But he then like Christian's talking about like, don't be snitching and like things like that. And like I expressed a PR. I was like, Christian needs to understand like there are he could be worried about some people because he doesn't know all of this, and that's fine. But like no player that is not talking into my microphone is ever going to get what they say expressed otherwise, unless it's something that's like really funny and benign. And
I was going to say, but you're unique in that.
Yeah.
And that's a big time vet move from Jamal of saying,
hey,
Christian, watch your mouth when the doors are open, because everything, maybe not to us, Matt, but to other people in there, it's fair game, whatever is said. But that it's so tough because the media, that's been one of the biggest challenges of my job, is because I am still considered media, but I'm not typical media. And so it's like, how do you relay to these guys that like, you're safe. You're safe. There will never be anything posted. There will never be anything said that you don't want to be posted or said. Like that's just not going to happen. Because the media does have such a tough reputation with it. It does. It's like you're out to burn people. I think it's why Jokic is the way that Jokic is in a lot of situations. Because
especially in the NBA, for whatever reason, that's what I don't really get. Is like that's been one of my frustrations with the Nuggets. Is I'm always like, guys, if you get traded to certain places, I will show you what a tough media room looks like.
Yeah. Yes.
Like we're fine. Because like you kind of mentioned, you have, as part of your job, they have to feel kind of safe with you. And I have to walk that line of like, you're not safe with me, but I'm not going to go out of my way, and I'm not going to do anything duplicitous that is going to burn you. And if we have an issue, I'll talk to you about it straight and explain like what happened.
Yeah.
But also a lot of that is just like they're rich and famous, so they don't want like that's not something they have to take the time to deal with, which is fine. I think the last question on kind of your role is I think it is good that you're able to enjoy it the way that you are. Like you talked about the joy and the expression of when they won the championship. I've said this on the pod, and it's whenever people have asked me about it at Summer League, I got asked like, what was it like covering the championship? And I said, that building is the most hopeful place I've ever been in. Like hope was like the word for that night. It wasn't expectation. It wasn't nervousness. It wasn't, sometimes it's dread when you're in a building.
Fear.
Fear. There was just like hope in that building of like, okay, maybe they won't do it because they've never done it, but like they could do this. And so it's cool to be able to express that. Is that something that you've come to appreciate about the job? Is that your ability to express your personality, but also your emotions as it relates to covering this team and being along for that ride?
100%. One thing about me is I can't be anything but myself. Like the authenticity is something that, one, I take a lot of pride in, but two, I really don't feel like I have that much control over. Like it just is what it is. And I feel so fortunate to, one, be working for a sports network that values that and wants to put me in positions to highlight that and spotlight that and knows where I can be successful and wants to put me in those positions. Whether it's as an analyst, whether it's as a host, whether it's as a reporter, I think that they recognize and they really value what I bring. But being able to be joy-filled with Nuggets fans and having, again, the continuity that this franchise has had and me being fortunate enough to be here for 6 seasons now, like I'm with this team and I'm with these people more than I'm with my family. Like it's one of those things where it's like it's my work family, and you want to see them succeed. You root for them. You root for good people and good human beings. And you guys, I'm not just saying this. Like, this team is filled with them from the top down. Like, the front office, the coaching staff, all of the players. Like, they are truly good human beings, not just basketball players. And obviously, this is the only team that I've specifically worked with and for. But I imagine that that's rare. I really do. Like, I just don't think that you have a full roster of players and people and coaches that know me by name, that ask me how I'm doing, that say it's good to see me, that have regular human interactions and conversations with me on a regular basis that aren't just about my job. And there's not a day that I take that for granted, truthfully. And it allows me to experience those moments of unfiltered happiness when a championship happens, because they deserve it. These people, not just the players, not just the coaches, these people deserved that. And these fans that you mentioned, like I'm overwhelmed in the best way, by the Nuggets community and the way that they've embraced me and the way that they have leaned on me for stories and information and just enjoying the experience together. And you kind of tile that together, and it's like my favorite part of what I do is being able to be kind of like that bridge between this team, this franchise, and the fans, and me being lucky enough to be sandwiched in the middle of that and getting to experience both sides and bring them together.
On the other side, we'll wrap up with Katy Winge. I want to give her a chance to give a shout out to some folks, and I want to get her quick thoughts on, well, the kiddos that the Nuggets added this summer. We'll do that on the other side on Locked On Nuggets. Back to your final segment with Katy Winge. Going to get her out of here real quick because I've run long because, well, she's just a fantastic guest.
I'm chatty. It's my own fault.
So I will ask you, I got a couple for you here. One, I want to ask you, being in Summer League in Vegas, what was your impression of the young guys, about Jalen Pickett and Julian Strother and the very impressive Hunter Tyson?
Seriously, who is Hunter Tyson?
Just Hunter Tyson going out there getting buckets, running pick and rolls. What was your impression, both of them, from the limited interviews that you got with them, and as well as seeing them on the floor?
I love their mindset in the conversations that I've had with them. And I think the one that stands out to me is Julian Strother being like, I don't want to be the reason that the winning stops here. Like, that mentality to me is like, that's exactly what this franchise needs. Do I think that any of the three are going to be rotation players come this season? No, not right now. I don't. But the Nuggets are also coming off their longest season ever, so I would imagine that they're going to be cautious with minutes, which means we will see the young guys play in real NBA minutes at some point. What I loved most about watching them at Summer League was the way that they developed through the time that they were there, and developed as in got more comfortable, developed as in found more rhythm within the flow of the Nuggets offense, got to their spots within the Nuggets system, and really committed to doing that. I like their games are so unique, right? All three of them, they all have kind of their own identities, and I'm excited to see the way that they fit within the Nuggets culture. Strother, shooter, I'm so excited to see how that kind of translates to the NBA and at that pace of play. Pickett, I think, is solid. Like, I think he's just a solid player. I think he's physical, even though he's smaller. I think that what he might lack in size, he makes up for in heart and basketball IQ. And so once he gets a little bit more comfortable, I think he'll do some really great things. And then what surprised me most about Hunter Tyson was the attitude. The attitude and the energy that he played with. That was what kind of blew. Like, I would remember watching him in real life the first game, and he was like flexing and yelling, and I was like, what? I'm sorry, what? I did not know that this was a part of who you are. And so they're all you have reason to be optimistic about all three of them. You really do. And I'm excited to see them both at the G League level, learning from Andre Miller in Grand Rapids and seeing kind of how that goes. And then, mixing them in at different times and seeing how they fit. The good news is, I think they all have that humble, sponge-like mentality of, we're walking into the champions locker room right now. I'm going to learn everything I possibly can. I am not going to be the reason that anything goes wrong here. I just want to get better and do what I can to learn how to be a professional and to help this team make another run for it.
Before I get you out of here, I want to give you a chance to shout out some folks at Altitude that maybe don't get the shine. Obviously, look, Chris Marlowe's a legend. He's an absolute legend. He's awesome. The voice of the Nuggets, Scott Hastings, Vic Lombardi. But I kind of want to give you a chance to talk about some of the folks that were involved in the Emmy award-winning broadcast coverage of the Denver Nuggets, and who kind of you think want to give you an opportunity to give a shout out for the people that contribute behind the scenes.
There are so many, so we'd be here for another 20 minutes if I listed all of them. But thank you, because I feel like a lot of people see our heads on TV and, they just make it on TV somehow. And everything that the graphics, the video, no one really thinks about how that stuff happens. So there's a whole TV truck full of people that do just tremendous work. I was truly so happy for our director, Scott Bay. He's been with the Nuggets forever. And so for him to be a part of winning a Nuggets championship was really special. We just have so many great ones. Our producer, Andy Kilman, manages so many personalities. And that should be the job description for our game producer, our pregame producer, because there are so many of us and there are so many moving pieces, and he did a tremendous job with that. Bob Nikolai, Taylor Vincic. Taylor's my girl. I know everybody that follows me knows that we call ourselves the dynamic duo because we truly feel like we've worked really hard to be able to interact and show off these relationships that we have with this team. And the two of us really, really work well together. She's a creative genius, fantastic editor. Bob Nikolai is another great one. He's the other videographer. Amazing, does great work on Nuggets 360 for those that are able to watch that, all the behind the scenes footage. The list goes on and on and on. Truly, it really does. From graphics to replay operators, audio, camera people, there's just so many that go into making our broadcasts work. And Again, I'm so lucky to be a part of it. That's another family in itself. And after winning the Emmy, Matt, I feel like we're a championship team too, and what we were able to do. So everybody does such a great job of fulfilling their roles, and we hope that the fans love it as much as we love putting on those productions.
That's Katy Winge of Altitude Sports. You can find her on Twitter at Katy Winge, as well as on Instagram and other platforms I'm sure that she'll be on. She's going to enjoy her summer going hiking here in Colorado. She's heading back to Minnesota for a little bit. I'm glad she gets to go see her family.
Send me your good hikes, everybody.
And I'm sure we'll have her on again before the Nuggets season as they look to repeat as NBA champions and defend their title. Katy, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, let's run it back. Thank you.
We'll see you guys again next time. I'll be back tomorrow. Zach By of 104.3 stops by to give us his thoughts on the Nuggets championship and what we saw in Summer League. Make sure to check out that. I've got guests all throughout the week. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Locked On Nuggets. Till then, see you guys again next time here on Locked On Nuggets.